All right. Hey, welcome everyone back to another episode of AMAG Asks. Kyle Gordon, really excited today to be joined by Rob Lydic from Wavelynx. I'm going to have Rob introduce himself here in a second, but just in general today, the idea behind the conversation is to have a very very informal discussion around our industry and what feels like the pretty transformative journey it's on right now, especially as we sort of look at the credential space. So, Rob, why don't you introduce yourself?
Kyle, thanks for having me. I'm Rob Lydic, president of Wavelynx, a manufacturer of credentials and readers and a bunch of other technologies in the market, based here in Broomfield, Colorado, right outside of Denver. And I'm super pleased to have the opportunity to chat with you.
We're pumped to have you. So maybe quickly, Rob, because I know you've done quite a few things in the space before we get into our conversation today, just a little brief background on sort of where you come from and your past experience.
So I started in the late 90s in data, and I was in the data world. I called myself a bit of an IT dork, working on Ethernet and Y2K and all kinds of things. And then I moved into working in data centers and understanding heating, cooling, did a lot of designs for that type of product. And then in 2006, I entered the physical security world, and I started a company doing video, working out of the Midwest. Started a big company that I ended up selling, and then moved to Colorado in 2014 to grow a manufacturer up and sell it. And then I end up here at Wavelynx in 2020, which I'm super stoked to have been part of leading this organization to the forefront of access control on the credential and reader space.
And maybe that's a good place to start. We can kind of work our way backwards. So what about sort of the credential and reader space attracted you to that opportunity?
That's an awesome question. And it really is interesting. Like in every industry, there's an ebb and flow. Like there's a expansion, then you move back to maybe where it was. And I look at computing and it'd say, well, we went from dumb terminals when you're using IBM Token Ring to completely distributed networks. And I think we're almost moving back to that dumb terminal where I can now log on to any machine. I don't have to have my specific computer. I can actually move into that. Well, in the access control world, what I've come to find out is that it started in credentialing and what we could do, what type of modalities, what type of credentials. And then it moved hard for a long time into your world at AMAG, where it's what rules and what features and how do I let somebody in the door? When do I let them? When should I not let them? And if this, then that, like a ton of logic and a lot of feature sets that got built into these access control platforms, and AMAG certainly being at the forefront of that. But now we've come back to that whole world of credentialing. And quite frankly, now it's been tied more into identity, which has a whole different world of what that means. And that's what gets me super excited now of, wow, we're back in this world of the value of your identity in combination with when that door is supposed to open or not for the respective individual and who that individual is really creating this amazing opportunity that we see today.
Yeah, no, I think without being too hyperbolic, I think we're absolutely at an inflection point. I can remember when I was in entry-level sales in upstate New York, and I would have reader and credential salespeople at my office with, the see-through cards or whatever, and talking about, MagStripe and the transformation to procs, and from procs to the different levels of security within a smart card, right? And then eventually also getting into biometrics. I was involved quite a bit with sort of the one card discussion because I did quite a bit of work on universities, college campuses, and obviously they're they're a great use case and adopter of one card. What is it about sort of where we're going now? And I think there's maybe two conversations here, but what is it about now that the market's ready or seems to be ready for this eventual evolution into the next round of credentials, which we're obviously assuming is mobile, and we're assuming within mobile that it's wallet, right? There's elements of that. So I guess maybe let's just start with that question. What is it about the current state that you're finding users to be ready for this conversation now more so than ever?
I think there's two, maybe more factors, but I'll start with two. One is time, that the time has passed, their technology is legacy, and they're looking for a secure answer, one. And two, we've been led to an entire world where everything we do within a company, everything we do within a government, everything we do within a school, we're used to having a username, password, and some form of two-factor authentication before we can get into anything. And we're logging into, we're getting notifications on text. We're getting, to give me a code, or it happens every day in our life. It doesn't matter if it's my banking. It doesn't matter if I'm logging into Microsoft Teams or Google or whatever I'm logging into. I'm used to interacting with that to validate I am who I say I am right now. And customers are asking us, well, why can't I do that for access control? Because to your point, we started in credentials, and I got a great card here, right? We've all seen this. This is a mag stripe card. And this is where access control started in the 60s and 70s. And honestly, I went to college in the 90s, and, I still have my student ID. And my student ID had a mag stripe. And you know what? Colleges and universities invested in this big. And so did corporations. They're like, this is freaking awesome. Let's put these on all the doors. We'll force everybody to swipe. And what do you know in your one card world? You're like, well, we can use that for lunch swipes too. And we can use that for all these other applications, for checking a book out of the library, for doing all those higher ed world. But in physical security for the corporate world, we're like, well, we could use that too. Well, then eventually that migrated. That's a contact type of installation. You're making contact, you're reading off the mag stripe, and we all learned, whoa, that's insecure. So to your point, we're like, whoa, now we can do contactless. And so we got the same card. Now I can just go up and beep. It beeps the reader. That was transformational, as you're pointing out. Like, that blew people's mind. That you just put a card near it. It could read it, energize it, grab a card number. You're like, wow. Well, that first tech was procs. And then we learned shortly thereafter, it's been almost 20 years, procs is insecure. Anybody can copy procs. And we're seeing all these devices all around the market where you can stand next to somebody, copy the card. You got machines in every freaking grocery store and pharmacy that copies, physical keys. And now they're copying cards, and it costs $5. So, I can copy a key. And now companies, institutions, and governments are going, whoa, we have these cards. This has been great that we've been able to distribute out large numbers of cards. We made it a name tag too. Like, we put your name on it. We put your picture on it. We put your company ID. It's like still a key that, quite frankly, Kyle, you could pick up my card, has my name, my picture, my company, says Wavelynx on it, and you can enter my building. There's nothing about that stops you. Yet everything in our IT world, everything about how we interact with our banking, everything about how we interact with social media, or even our workplace tools would never allow that. And so customers are saying, hey, we got this thing in our hand. How do we go about using this? And so they're like, wow, I want to use this device that I never take out of my hand, and the kids are glued to. How do I make that happen? Which has migrated us to a new window where in 2018, Apple allowed us to have Wallet for higher ed. And I had the privilege of getting to work with them for a number of years where they're like, well, let's move into other markets. And today we are in commercial. We're in multifamily. We're in higher education. We're in lots of other new verticals where today, now, my credential is on my phone. And that's a wallet credential. But guess what? It can do all those things that IT wanted me to do, which was I'm going to use to get my corporate ID. I've got to enter my username, my password of two-factor authentication, or even passwordless, which is an awesome concept as well, to move to a world where every time I present this credential, quite frankly, it can validate I am who I say I am. And as an administrator, I operate and manage that no different than I manage a computer. If an employee is no longer with us, you change their password and they can't get access to those devices. You could do the exact same thing here. You didn't have to ask for a credential back, and it wasn't copyable. So that's really a fun journey that I walked through, of all the way from, MagStripe, which is still being used, quite frankly, on gas stations. Like everybody knows that can in a heartbeat. All the way to, well, now we're using Wallet. And funny enough, I now use Wallet to pay for my gas because I don't want to put a physical card in there.
Yeah, I think we're going from the purpose of the Prox card was to remove the key, because at one point in time, there was too many master keys getting distributed, whether as in a facility or college campus or whatever, which was inherently a massive security risk. So the card purpose was to replace the key. And it feels like we're at the very, I wouldn't even say early stages, I guess, not infancy for sure, but early stages of this replacing the card. Is that too bullish of a thing to say?
No, it's not. And interestingly, I started in the 1970s and I said, we're doing MagStripe. And the harsh reality is a lot of those college campuses never changed. A lot of those corporations never changed off of MagStripe. I still walk around with some customers and they're like, yeah, we know it's 30 years old. We didn't ever find the budgets to go do that. Some that did, maybe they moved to Prox, or maybe they moved to a secure credential, which is about 40% of the market, moved to that secure credentialing technology. And it took them years and years and years. And Kyle, you and I have some customers that we know that are massive corporations that exist on Prox. And those organizations could never find the financing to upgrade their panels and upgrade their world to move to a more secure credential. But today, I'm absolutely blown away to see customers, end users, finding money in a heartbeat to move to a wallet credential. It is remarkable. I've been trying to push people to secure credentials using MyFair for 5 years with some of these customers, and they would never move. They're like, nah, I don't have the readers, I don't have the finance to go do it, but I show them wallet and it ties their IT to their physical security and managed through a information management system or identity management system. Holy heck. They're like, here's your money. Let's replace those readers. Let's upgrade now.
Is that the unlock? Is it that finally maybe Wallet has allowed the security champion to have a common sheet of music with the IT team? So it allows them to really work together in a way maybe in the past they weren't able to as effectively. Is that what you think kind of is the big unlock there and sort of that demand?
It is. And so when you look at large organizations, you get the chief security officer and you get the chief information officer, two different silos. One's a cost center and one's viewed as a profit center. The CIO world is viewed as a profit center. So we all, in the physical security world, we all been saying, well, all the money's over in IT. We watched that actually happen in video. Like the video people are like, it's all going to go on your network. It's going to go all IP and you can manage it. And the IT people are like, hell yeah, we're in.
Right.
And now this, from an access control perspective, is even more powerful because now those two organizations, they're not colliding, but they're augmenting with one another because it can speak the same language. Because to your point of we all carry around a brass key, right? We carry around a brass key to open and close a door. And when somebody lost a master key, we had to pay them to go around and undo that. Well, access controls, we were like, well, this is great. We have a key that we can just roll the keys and give everybody new pieces of plastic. we'd have to change the locks. We just give everybody a new piece of plastic. Now we don't have to give people new pieces of plastic. We just roll keys within a wallet credential, and ta-da, everything is secure again in the event that any compromising were to happen. And an IT manager, alongside with a physical security professional, can manage all of it.
So if you're an end user and you're having these conversations, I would expect that your entry into this discussion may be a little bit overwhelming. If you haven't really, especially if you have, it's overwhelming if you have 100 people, but if you have 10,000 cardholders and you start to really think about what this looks like, I would assume that the lack of adoption out there right now, part of it may just be because it's overwhelming, right? And frankly, not every end user out there has a robust IT department sitting there too to support them in this migration. So I guess what would be some of your guidance to someone who's just starting to maybe entertain the idea of adopting an access control credential, a mobile one, primarily wallet?
So the first step is just test it. Like, get a reader that supports wallet, get a credential, have it work with your access control. And this is where we've seen a lot of success, where the physical security people know that they want to bridge the gap over into IT and make their infrastructures more secure. They also know that everybody's touching their device. They want this, whether it be a corporate issued device or a BYOD, bring your own device type world as well. We have large end users that we just put it on a single door for them so they could test it with companies like AMAG, and they just feel it, see it, because we're all using Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay to buy things. My driver's license is in my wallet, and we know the sound of it. We know what it feels like. We know how it operates. We know how far away from a reader it is. And it just works. And then that organization says, yeah, we want this big, and here's how we're going to begin to roll this out. And so they start with a building, or some start with 10, and then they move out. And it scales really, really well, because now I'm not bringing people into an office to give them a one-on-one credential, where I'm not shipping via UPS and spending $70 to $80 per person for an individual card. That's the first step. Just try it. Like it just becomes a no-brainer for them. And invariably, you began to break it down at the beginning of this talk, Kyle. There's two types of mobile. Mobile's not mobile. Under mobile, there's BLE, which is app-based. It's an app that resides on your phone that we didn't have access to do it any other way in the access control world, because Apple locked it down, Google locked it down, and we didn't have any other way, but people wanted to use their phones. And then environments like your customers, where you have very large entities, are like, there's no way I'm letting that through. It's not cyber secure. It's not user friendly. I don't know how far away I got to be. Like, there's all kinds of issues that it didn't get wide adoption. And at Wavelynx, we've been providing these things for 9 years now. But now with Wallet, Apple and Google are fully behind this. And it's not an app. It's a function of the device. So it does things that other credentials couldn't do. It validates identity. And on the user end, it works if the phone's dead to get you to a secure area. And an administrator can manage it with any user, anywhere, at any time. And even better yet, the individual that holds the phone. So I, as Rob, I lose my phone, I can log into my iCloud account and say it's lost, which removes all my wallet credentials and my credit cards out of my wallet instantly. All until I find it, and I go back to my iCloud account and I say, ta-da, I found it, and it reprovisions all of those. This new technology opens so many doors for people that they never knew they wanted opened, but now they're just running through it.
We've talked a lot about the door specifically opening, but you almost bringing it back to our one card solution. Now your one wallet, one badge solution. Does that, I mean, I don't mean it to be a leading question because it's not, it's a legitimate question. Does that open your ability both as an end user who's provisioning credentials or also a user of the credentials to, I mean, you mentioned licenses, the thing that I think about back with the university space was your dining, your fitness center pass. So these other things that would traditionally be in your wallet as a separate pass. Is that the route we're going down now with the mobile credential within a wallet environment?
I think that all of these technologies that are introduced in the wallet, from payment to driver's license, it just happens to be my Colorado driver's license in my wallet, to tickets from Ticketmaster, to loyalty programs with airlines and credit cards and shopping centers, all the way through, cash apps and all these other things that are part of that. We are going to be in the wallet for a long period of time. States have begun to rapidly adopt these mobile driver's licenses that are residing in these wallets because they're secure. In access control, it's only a matter of time until we begin collaborating with those other use cases that say, oh, okay, I want to pay for a book and I've got a payment card, but I'm also an employee here, but I want to associate my personal card. That doesn't exist today. It's nothing to say it can't exist tomorrow. Or I, as an employee, want to submit my driver's license rather than hand somebody in HR a driver's license. I want to send it to them via the wallet, have that somehow authenticated into my corporate access control credential. All of those opportunities are going to continue to reveal themselves over the next 10, 15 years. Today, we're in the beginning stages of it. I've never seen a technology in access control, which everybody knows access control operates really slow, move this fast. And it is transforming our industry at a rate that we've never seen before.
Let me just make sure we expand on the one point, because I think and then we can end with this, but I think we hit on the convenience thing. The convenience factor is pretty obvious, right? Now that wallet lives in our daily life, I don't think you're going to find many people that would argue that it's inconvenient. But we briefly touched on the secure nature of the credential. So maybe we can expand on that just a little bit here, Rob, because I think that is a really important piece of the discussion is the security of the credential itself and how much we're trusting this credential to be secure.
Yeah, so the access control credential resides on the same infrastructure, and we are forced to the same test that you would rely on a payment perspective. So all of the credit card issues, the MasterCards, the Visas, the American Expresses, they all have an infrastructure that ties back to the wallet providers with Apple, Google, and Samsung. We have a very similar infrastructure that has those same levels of security associated with it. And most importantly, in my perspective, the levels of privacy that me as a individual, as Rob Lydic, that I'm bringing my phone into an organization. I want to know that I'm not sharing my private information, maybe with my employer. Apple specifically believes in privacy in a massive extent. And I'd encourage any of the listeners to go to apple.com/privacy, where they say privacy is a human right. And I personally agree with that. And with the native security associated with the wallets that we could never create in access control, and combined with the protection of my privacy as this is my device, but I want to put a corporate credential on it, no different than I put a credit card or a driver's license or other stuff. I want to share with my employer what they have the ability to and the right to see. They get to know that I am who I say I am. They get to know when I entered a building, but they don't need to know. I mean, nobody other than HR needs to know when my birth date is.
All right.
They don't need to know where I live personally. I don't want to share that information. And that is native to these wallets where even in my driver's license, it's kind of fun. I can go through and buy food on an online app. It can reference my driver's license in my wallet and only share that I'm over 21. And now that validates a transaction. And I'd have to hand somebody a card that has all my personal information. And I used to have our social securities on it, but now that's smart, they got rid of that. But still has my address, my sex, my weight, my height. I don't need to share that with a bouncer that I want to get into a bar. And the wallet is one of those functions that I personally love it as a consumer, that it's ultra secure. I can trust it. I can have some influence on it. It complies with things like GDPR, and it protects my privacy. Like, super cool.
Very cool. Well, it's certainly a fascinating conversation. Probably could do this for another 2 hours, but we'll pick it up at another time. But Rob, thanks for joining today. We very much appreciate your insights on this topic.
Thanks, Kyle.